Photographs alter and enlarge our notions of what is worth looking at and what we have a right to observe.
A camera has interesting ideas of its own.
Hey, welcome to the Street Shots Photography Podcast. This is Antonio.
And this is Ward.
And this is episode 182 for the end of April 2023. And survive tax season. Do you guys do taxes in April?
Yeah, we do. There's some interesting wrinkles to that. Our tax season ends at the end of April, not the middle of April.
Oh, okay.
So that's good, for one thing. But the big union, one of the Public Service Alliance of Canada, have gone on strike.
Oh.
So the people who do the taxes for us in Canada are on strike.
Really?
They are.
Our IRS doesn't go on strike.
Funny how that is.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, maybe they'll start to unionize and they'll start to fire them and stuff like that. Apparently, they all took they had big problems during the pandemic. There weren't enough people. Now there's enough people. People are getting their taxes done. I don't want to talk about taxes. Sorry, everybody. People are listening to me like, why are you talking about taxes?
What is photography? Well, no, it's
it's better than what happens.
Ripped out of today's headlines.
Yes, yeah. Boy, all right. Yeah, I had to file an extension, but that's a whole other story. But anyhow, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. We had nice mid-60s Fahrenheit weather here and went for my walk downtown. It was delightful. It was a very nice day today. A long day, but a good day.
Snow melts already?
Snow's gone.
Gone?
Except for a little bit that's in the shade in the backyard.
We should ask Dave how much snow he still has.
I think he's another 3 or 4 weeks out probably before this goes away.
Imagine snow melting in May. I can't believe that. That would be just, well.
I can, strangely.
Yeah, I know you can. Yeah, but I'm from the South here.
To the South, yeah.
From the South.
The Southern District of New York. That's where you're from, yes.
Yeah, we've unfortunately had no snow, or like so little, and I just relate to photography, not the weather, but I remember I love to go out and shoot in the snow, like especially when we have one of these giant snowstorms, and I wrap up my camera in, I call it the hobo, watertight bag, which is basically a hefty bag, like a freezer bag, and I cut out a hole and I stick the lens through it. I make the hole small so that the lens has to get in really tight, and just go out and shoot. And I like watching people shoveling, or I had this really cool shot. I don't know if I can find it for the show notes, but of these three guys dragging shovels in the snow. There are three of them in a line, and they're just they're not carrying their shovels, like they're dragging it behind them.
Oh, cool.
And then the whole Ocean Parkway is white because it's one of those big blizzards. And I miss that because we just don't get it. We get a dusting or something like that, and then it melts by the next day. And this is, it's been a trend. I don't remember when we had a snowstorm. I think it's because I bought brand new snow boots. And every time I buy brand new snow boots, it doesn't snow.
I see.
Maybe I should throw them out.
It's up to you.
But I know that if you get landlocked in snow, that can be kind of tiresome. So I feel for those people who just have to still deal with it. But I miss a little bit of it. You could send some of it here. It's okay. New York.
I have no control. It's sure, go snow. I'll put a hex on you.
If you could.
Snow.
No, I don't want any snow now. This is April, and
all right,
we're good. We just had a huge rainstorm, so it knocked all the petals off the cherry blossoms, so they're all on the ground now.
Oh, I saw some other pictures, pink all over on the sidewalks and stuff. I think I saw a picture from Brooklyn actually.
Yeah, the Botanic Garden is probably going to be a bit disappointed because they have their big cherry tree, the Sakura Festival, I think coming up in the next week or two, if I'm not wrong, because it's usually near May, and because everything is a little bit early this year, and now that we had this big rainstorm, all the petals are on the ground, so the garden is probably not going to look as nice, because it's really nice when the petals are in in the cherry trees. And now they're going to be on the green grass, which is its own nice thing. But I think people like to go see that. So anyway, I haven't been in the Botanic Gardens in a long time since since I got. Not since I didn't get fired from them, but I was really disappointed that I couldn't do the calendars for them anymore. They outsourced those.
They wanted to go a different direction.
They want to go a different direction. And they asked me my opinion about that. And I was like, you really want my opinion about that? I was like, I'm not very keen on that idea, you know. And then the calendar quality, at least the year after, I don't know who's doing it now, but the year after definitely took a dive. But anyway, I'm not bitter about that.
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
I can't sense it at all.
Yeah, but I haven't been there. But anyway, it's looking nice here. Green, warmth, and nice to get out with the camera. I've been going around with the medium format a bit, going out shooting in the morning. I'm just still trying to figure out who I am as a photographer, going out and catching little bits of my neighborhood, little vignette details and stuff like that. Nothing that I would call sort of spectacular, but I think altogether as a body of work of this neighborhood, I was thinking maybe I should put a little book together and see if people in my neighborhood would want to buy it or you know, help finance it. You know, just do something through Blurb. And again, when you put all the when I look at them in Lightroom and I piece them all together, it's like, oh, then it becomes something. It's like not the individual pictures, but sort of the whole.
I know a certain coffee shop breakfast spot that would probably sell them.
Well, actually, now that you mention that, he's the coffee shop that Ward is referring to is a place called Blue Star on Cortellia Road. We hit that place for breakfast a bunch of times when Ward was here. I go there kind of every morning, and the guy who owns the place is named Sherman. Prior to the pandemic, we'd actually talked about me maybe having a show there, and he during the pandemic had a chance to renovate the place so that it's a little bit more according to, you know, anyway, he changed the kitchen and stuff like that. So actually just recently I was talking to him as things are settling down now and his renovation is done, and he's got a brick wall. There's an exposed brick wall in this place. And he came to me and he goes, you know, we want to start maybe, you know, we talked about hanging stuff up. I'm like, yeah, you know, let's get back into that. I have to put a gallery together for him stuff. I'm not sure exactly what to do, but we were also talking about a system to hang the stuff on because he's got brick, and to try to make it something that, you know, he's not a millionaire, so we want to make a system that you can hang prints up there easily enough, and especially for other people, right? Because I'm assuming I'm not going to be the only one showing stuff there. Right. So what I remember is I had a show at a juice bar, another place, juice bar kind of place in another part of Brooklyn, and they had an exposed brick wall too. And they used, what was interesting, they used electrical conduit, that sort of steel pipe, like a really thin version of it.
Yep.
And they bolted it on to the brick. And so there was like a rail. And when I saw that, I don't know if they came up with the idea, but I came up with the idea of using, do you know molding hooks? They're these little S-shaped flat, flat-shaped hooks. If you have a molding in your apartment or house, and if you don't want to put nails in your wall, you can use these molding hooks and then hang wires off of them and then hang your prints from those. Right. So I used molding hooks and I used chains. And the prints that I made were prints on a foam core board.
So it was light. It was not.
Light, and it wasn't framed, and it was just. And I did some kind of rigging in the background, so I made a triangle, and it was really easy to, when I was using chains, to change the length so that everything was equal. And, you know, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't like a gallery things with, you know, frames and stuff like that, but they looked good, and this rail system worked out really well, because then you can hang anything from it. If you have molding hooks or even just S hooks, you can put an S hook on there with even just, you know, a fishing wire or something like that, and hang your print in the center and, you know, shift it back and forth. And it's easy to change the length.
Right.
So I suggested to him about that. I showed him a picture of it. So hopefully he'll look into that. And I'm my to-do list is to put a gallery of stuff together. I'm not sure what to do. Like this, like, oh, well, what pictures would I want to show? Part of me thinks maybe, details of the neighborhood. Maybe there's one thing. Maybe some just generic, New York stuff. I don't know what he's got in mind in terms of. I think this would be more like a show rather than decor.
Right.
So if it's a show, then I guess we could actually have to talk to him about that. I don't know what his plan is. I think he should have it
should
as a
be
gallery.
part of and two, part of collaboration is it helps you answer certain questions you really don't want to ask of yourself. If you've got someone with a preference, it's easy to go with it because thank goodness someone's, expressed something. You're not wandering in the wilderness. And, you and I have enough material that we don't feel bad if you don't pick what,
Right,
we have an idea that you pick something that's going to be more appropriate and what he thinks is going to generate interest from the clientele that go through his place. I think it's great.
Yeah, and especially if to set it up as a gallery space so that you can have the pictures for sale and have an opening and, sell your food stuffs and have people come over and make it a big, sort of a gathering thing. So
very cool.
I assume he's thinking about that, or I haven't talked to him about that fully. So that's on the plate. But
cool.
Yeah, I gotta get that moving along soon. It's one of those things that I keep putting off, but it's been a couple of years now, so probably not time to pull it off. So anyway,
cool.
Changing gears here. I saw that you had a sky event near your house.
We did last night.
Describe, please.
Well, at 10 o'clock last night, my beloved is watching some TV, and she got an alert on her watch saying that there was a auroral storm, northern lights, on tonight. And usually what it means is we get into the car and we go out and drive north of the city to get away from the light pollution of the city and try and get pictures of the northern lights. But so the first idea is to go out onto the deck in the backyard and have a look north and see what we can see. And we were just bowled over by the intensity of what we saw. Not just the typical green, which is what you typically see. These green kind of shimmery, curtainy kind of things in the northern part of the sky close to the horizon. This was above our head, and it wasn't just green. There was white, there was red, there was purple, there was a deep violet even. It was beautiful. It was so bright it was actually starting to light our backyard.
Wow.
Almost like a, and you could tell because the moon was, I don't know if the moon and Venus are very close together right now. So they're bright objects in the sky, straight west. And you could see the shadow of the moon on our back fence, but you could also see that the aurora was lighting that shadowed area beside the fence. Really? Yeah. So oh, wow. Yeah. So it was very, very bright, and that's in the city limits too. So that was amazing. So I had to get up early this morning, so I didn't want to go out for a drive and be out until after midnight and all this kind of stuff. So I awkwardly set up my little travel tripod and set up my street camera, the street camera that I use, and I have some guidelines for exposure and stuff. And so I pointed in different regions of the sky, and I got a couple of nice ones last night.
Can you see it well with your eyes, or is the camera picking it up more because you're doing a longer exposure?
Last night you could certainly see it very well. The colors like the white and the violet are really hard to discern unless you stare at a region of sky, sort of like darkroom eyes. You remember, we were kids, like it would start to come on, but then I'm going back and forth between looking at the sky and then looking at the display on the back of the camera.
That's really throwing your eyes.
I'm zapping my, because you do really, it's a situation where you really do have to chimp because, I have ideas for, typically for me at my latitude, 25 seconds is about as long as exposures I'd want. And then I'd pick a kind of a middling aperture, 5.6 or 4 or 8.
What are you using, like a 16 millimeter or something?
I use a 16 most of the time. Last night, because we were in the backyard, I could And because it was so intense, and because there was foreground details, trees and neighboring homes, I could use my 23, which I don't normally use, and the features were such that they made kind of compositional sense to do that. And I was afraid because I love the 16 because it has a manual focus clutch and I can just turn it to infinity and not have to worry about it. With the 23, it's the XF 23 F2, and so I have to look at the little focus scale on the display in the back to make sure I'm still at infinity before I trip the shutter. And my XE3 actually has a screw in for a cable release, so it's old school. Get to use a cable release. There's no self timer.
Good for Fuji. Most of their X cameras have the little screw thing for.
Big fan of the cable release, man.
Yeah,
and I have 2 of them in case one fails.
What's a cable release?
What's a cable release? It's a little wire thing. You push on it, and it's nice that I can actually set 25 seconds as an exposure time as opposed to clicking and locking and then looking at a watch for 25 seconds.
Could you do 25 seconds with the 23 millimeter, or is that just with the 16?
I got away with it last night doing 25 seconds with the 23.
Yeah.
The stars don't look like grains of rice, so it worked out fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And the reason, like, if you don't do astrophotography, one of the reasons why you think, well, it's the sky, you should be able to expose for a minute or 2 minutes or whatever. Well, the problem is because of the rotation of the Earth, the sky moves and it leaves star trails, and that can be used to great effect in other ways. But when it's aurora, you don't want it for too long because you want the feature of the aurora not to be too muddled. You want to catch it when there's some definition. At the same time, you don't want to have the distraction of having your stars look like little grains of rice on the image. 25 seconds is sort of my sweet spot, 25 seconds. So, and they worked out great, and they're quite beautiful. And I'll make a point of giving you a couple of pictures.
Yeah, please.
To post on the show notes.
I saw them, and and to be able to step in your backyard and see something like that is pretty flipping amazing.
Yeah.
I wish. I don't think auroras don't reach down here at all, or if it is, it's very, very rare, and we wouldn't be able to see it anyway with all the city lights, I imagine. But yeah, what do you know what defines the colors of the auroras? Like, why?
I actually don't know. I want to say the
okay.
temperature of the plasma and the composition of
it's just
whatever it is that's plasmaing.
So it's usually green, but yeah, the one shot I'm looking at that you did, which I actually kind of like I do like it because the tree and the line of the aurora sort of line up a little bit. So it looks like you've got this sort of triangular shaped, the base of it being trees and stuff, and the top part of the pyramid of it is this aurora, this purple and green aurora.
Yeah.
So I like
and there's some white in there too, which is also, for me, I don't
right in the
typically
center, right?
get to use. Yeah, I don't get to see white aurora.
And then some stars that you got, or a planet. I don't know if that's a planet.
Yeah, there is. Hercules is sort of in the middle there somewhere.
Hercules.
And there's Mars is in there too. I'd have to look at the star map to figure out. Mars is in that image somewhere. And just to, I'm sorry for everyone who's watching this on audio, but the crescent moon and Venus are very close together. Very bright, very striking sky we're having this week. But they're just out of the frame to the right. But anyway, so I was going after this particular shape that was these streamers that were coming directly down towards the to the ground. It's not the typical curtain thing that you would see, on the northern horizon, low to the horizon. This is almost directly above our heads, and that also made it pretty spectacular.
That's crazy, and it's just awe-inspiring too, I imagine too.
It is, and it's and as I was saying, before we went on, before we started the recording, when you see a really good display, it just takes you back to your early memories of seeing the Northern Lights for the first time. And you just stand there in silence, really. It's amazing. Yeah, there's other stuff going on and around this planet that we don't, just as individuals, we don't really understand, but it sure is beautiful.
It's things that are bigger than us.
Yeah.
and literally, but figuratively too. Like the wonders of that. I wish I could see something like that. That's something. That and a tornado. I don't know why I want to see.
Yeah, I'm interested in big weather too. I get what you're saying.
Big weather scares the crap out of me. It's scary in a a roller coaster kind of way,
Yeah.
Like just want to go and do this stuff. But this is
except it can destroy your house.
Well, yeah,
roller coasters.
I don't want to be. Yeah, no, I don't want to be in any place where it can be destroyed. Auroras don't destroy anything; they're just beautiful and big, and so is weather. So, I mean, is this considered weather? No. Aurora's. I mean, your wife got an alarm. What is that? Like a?
Yeah, there's
a weather alarm. Or?
There's apps you can buy for in our case iPhones that.
And who fires off the alarm? Is it like other people or?
Well, no, you set your lat long, and it looks at the data coming in, and looks at I don't know what the measure is, KP, I think it's called. If the values go up to a certain threshold where you're likely to see them, then you're likely to see the aurora. You will get an alert.
So there are conditions that will trigger. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. That's great. And having an app for doing it. We have apps for everything. This is great. It's nice because then you're not like waiting for when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen?
Well, sometimes you miss it. Like there's a lot of auroral activity, and it's a bit like fishing. Sometimes you go out and you see bits of it, and then, the real activity happened an hour and a half ago, and we missed it. The thing is, you got if you're an aurora chaser, which is not unlike the people who chase tornadoes. Mm-hmm. There's a local guy who I'd mentioned before, a local pro called Zeller. He's sort of a specialist in aurora photography. He's always out there, and sometimes he takes. I think on one occasion, this year he'd taken a group out, just based on the information they're getting. I'm in half an hour. I'm leaving to go take pictures of the aurora east of the city. Who wants to come with me? And he has like a van, like a touring van. Drives the whole group out, at midnight to go take pictures of the aurora, and it's fantastic.
Oh, that's
so yeah.
And he's based where? Near you?
He's based in Calgary. I don't know exactly where he lives, but he's in the city here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty special to be able to go out and photograph something like this. Just let's geek out for just a second. Technical stuff. You were what ISOs are you running at? Because you got to be careful with, you don't want to have too much noise in the picture. I mean,
so the first criteria for me is exposure time. So that's kind of the non-negotiable thing. So for me, it's between 15 and 25 seconds, typically 25 seconds. And then I pick an app, or I would, it depends where my head's at. I'll pick an aperture between f4 and f8, depending on how light the sky is or how light the display is. I'm fine with overexposing it a little bit because the values can come down, and then I've got a little bit of meat to deal with to make the sky black again, because there's some background haze, that kind of picks up light pollution and so on. It kind of picks up. The ISO is between 800 and 3200. And I'm fine shooting at 3200. You can hinge off that, and then, 32, ISO 3200, 25 seconds, and then calculate where the aperture is going to be, and it'll fall in that range.
Do you set the ISO yourself, or you let the camera choose?
I do both.
You do both.
I do both because I was unfamiliar. Because there's some foreground details. There are the trees and the houses that are in the houses are actually. The house that's included in part of the image here was actually lit by the inside lights of our home, right?
Oh,
Because of the long exposure, right?
yeah, it looks like a street light almost, but it's not. It's just
it's not. It's just
it's just
because of the
absorbing.
long exposure.
Yeah.
It's being lit by our kitchen lights, which would guess if we had the presence of mind, I suppose we could have turned all those lights off. But
then you just have this black shape. Then
well, that's fine. I think the black shape,
but
the black shape I think is fine because you know what it is. You sort of know what that shape is.
Yeah.
Anyway, it and I could have burned it down or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Next time, yeah.
So in this case, because I was sort of unfamiliar, I don't shoot off the deck. I usually go out in the middle of nowhere and I'll shoot at ISO 3200. It's quite a bit darker. Here, I let it float between 800 and 3200. Most of the images were between 1600 and 3200. So depends on how much you trust your camera. If 3200 is not working for you, then maybe you should open up a little more and pick a lower ISO.
Yeah. And, well, it's good to know your camera like that. And astrophotography is something I like to do, and not as something like official, but, setting up my camera on the hood of a car and pointing it at the sky and setting it for like 30 seconds and see what happens kind of thing.
Well, the further south you are, the faster your shutter speed's going to have to be because you're
spinning faster.
You're spinning faster, yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that, but I've only done it. I've done it with I've done it with my iPhone, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The new iPhone literally caught a shot of the Milky Way where I couldn't even see it with my eyes. It wasn't particularly. It was a little noisy and grainy, but it still distinguished the Milky Way perfectly. I darkened the blacks a little bit. But I used my X100 and once just put it on literally sat it on a car roof pointed up, and just changed different exposures, like the times and stuff like that, and let's see what we get. And you look at it, look at the back, and say, oh, it looks this, that, and the other thing, and then go back and try something else, and it's got that noise, that second exposure that it does to eliminate the noise.
Yeah.
Right. So for however much time you put into the exposure, it will take a second frame for the same amount of time with the shutter closed to then compensate for the noise, which means you have to wait. If you set your shutter up for 30 seconds, then you have to wait a minute before you take the next shot. But the results are, I find more often than not, pretty exciting. And so you were, I can't remember if you were just telling me offline or you said it while we were on the air that you only took 8 shots,
six or eight
maybe
shots. 10
yeah.
maybe.
So
now the problem is, and it's a problem. It's a situation you have to deal with these cameras with the mirrorless, is that you have a 25-second exposure, so the camera's tied up for that. Plus, there's all the noise reduction and post whatever processing that it does after, which is another 20 seconds. And you'd think that Northern Lights would be this kind of slow, beautiful show, and really isn't. It's quite fleeting. So while all this is going on, there's other exciting things going on elsewhere in the sky. Because I'm not the most coordinated dude, I'm like, I got to loosen the head and turn it. Oh, darn, I want to go horizontal this time. And then by the time I set it up, this fancy display that I was lining up for has evaporated, and now I'm waiting to get something else. So
you need 2 cameras.
I do have 2 cameras, but I only have 1 tripod. So
then you need 2 tripods.
My wife asked me about that. Well, you have 2 cameras. Well, I don't. I can't.
You just go from one to the other and back and forth while this one's exposing.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I've got 2. I do have 2 plates. Yeah, I could do that. Next time. This was an impromptu thing.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough to say there'll be a next time. I'll be happy to, to do this a next time. But it's one of these things in life, like, if it's happening, you don't get any pictures if you don't go out there. So,
right. Yeah, take the picture, get the shot.
And I think actually, I think in a lot of ways, these pictures mean more to other people than they do to me. I mean, their experiences and things that I see relatively often in my life. And I really enjoy showing guys like you who don't get to see this and talk about it. I think that's important. Those of us that don't live in the higher latitudes, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no problem. We'll get those in the show notes, folks.
Show notes.
They're not the best, auroral pictures, but they show something that's relatively rare in terms of color.
Yeah, and I think they're pretty good shots, especially the one with the purple. I think that one's pretty outstanding. So.
Yeah.
So what's next?
I don't know. What is next? We're going to talk about other stuff.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to talk about double take, right?
Double take, yes.
Double
what is
take.
It about images that make us want to take another look at them?
Yes. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah, and it's funny because I just finished the Avedon biography on audio tape. I have to listen to it again.
I'm on my third listen, by the way.
Third listen. Is it having meaning the third time? Like I know you can forget a lot because it's a very long book.
I forget a lot. Well, I forget a lot, and I'm also it's a combination of my memory, and sometimes I tend to doze off. So
okay.
So I'm like, no,
it's not. I thought you were gonna have something profound to say, and it's like, no, it's just because I forget.
Well, that is profound, I think.
Well, maybe. Okay, sure. Why not? But, I'm looking at...
No, I just want to I pride myself on memorizing things, and I think audiobooks, I'm just not... I think I might memorize it better if I read it instead of listening to it.
Well, be that as it may, I just finished past week. I'm going to see his show tomorrow.
You lucky.
At the
bastard.
The murals at the show. But we were talking about double take as an idea for a bit of a subject. And what do you think we mean by that? Like, explain that.
I think there's some different things that make you go back and look at a picture again, like right away. One is, the subject is this, and like, no, wait a second. This isn't about that. There's something else going on in the image that is deeper or disturbing or enlightening in the image that it almost seems like a puzzle. Like, oh, wait a sec. This image is not what I thought it was about.
There's more, way more to it. And in relationship to a lot of the pictures I'm looking at from Avedon's books that I have usually next to me while I'm listening to the biography, is the picture on the cover of this book, portraits of the guy covered with the bees. And I've seen this thing for years, picture for years. And you want to talk about a picture that I have to come back to of one of the strong pictures of his that I keep looking at. And
there's an accounting of the creation of that photograph.
There is a good accounting. I won't spoil it because if anybody wanted to read it, it's worth listening to. But the image itself, you're trying to think about, well, what is going on in the picture? Who is this guy and why is he covered by bees? And then the style of Avedon adds to this whole kind of mystery because you're sort of forced to look at him. There's nothing in the background and his white alabaster skin and what looks like, about 1,000 bees covering his good chunk of his body. And the fact that the guy has no hair on his body whatsoever. Yeah. But this is one of the pictures that I keep looking at. But when you mentioned this subject, the first thing I thought about for me, as much as there's so many, I have got a bunch of books in front of me. There's so many art books or art photographs, fine art photographs, that I come back to and look at all the time. And I just pull these off randomly out of my shelf. And Edward Weston, the first picture I think about is the pepper number, or what is it?
34.
Number 34, which looks like, it looks like whatever you think it looks like. You look at the picture, but or I pulled out a Bernice Abbott book, but the one that really jumped out at me, or the subject matter that jumped out at me, was photojournalism. Photojournalistic pictures. And the book I pulled out, which I think is one of the first books I had, my mom might have given it to me for a birthday present when I was like a little person, because I was into photography, was this book called Moments. So The book I have with me now is a paperback version of that, and it's so Moments is the Pulitzer Prize winning photograph. So I don't know if they put this out every year or every few years, and they add the current Pulitzer winning photographs to it. Because the book I had was a lot thinner than this one.
I know the World Press have an annual. I don't know the Pulitzer one.
Yeah, well, the idea of looking back. Well, I of course remember looking at this book or these photographs over and over and over again and trying to parse the story that was going on in the picture. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, I get drawn back to these pictures over and over again. So I'm not sure if that's what you're kind of talking about. Or
there's that. Well, I agree too that those first books that I got, I go over and over through as well. I don't know if they're just early influences or if there's something specific about you refreshing. And I think we talked last time about refreshing your memory of the image of those Magnum images that we have that we purchased from them.
Yeah, this
to
kind
go
of
back and refresh your memory
Yeah.
of what it is you're looking at, and whether you know it works for those pictures that you have to kind of do a little bit of work to discern what's going on.
Well, what's a picture for you? I mean, I'll tell you a couple of mine, but what comes to your mind for you?
Well, there's the photojournalism thing. I was just thinking what flashed into my head just right away was, and I think we're going to talk about this in the future with fashion photography. I think we're going to have a discussion about that at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
And our shared love for celebrity photography.
Yep.
And it's it's sort of like, do we not have enough of celebrities? Like, do we have to stare at pictures of them? They're on TV. We don't, but in the era that I've started looking at celebrity photography, there was something about seeing a moment or a gesture in the celebrity that I don't know, it's some movie star that you have a crush on, or it's some matinee idol guy that, some guy that you wish you knew, or you wish you were, or that pretty girl in the movie. And when you have a celebrity portrait taken of them, you hope, and sometimes the good celebrity photographers provide something of that person that is different from a persona or a character that they play, or in some lame press interview that they do. There's something about them that's like, could I know this person? Could I be this person's friend? And that's what I get out of the best celebrity photography, is that I could be this, maybe we could sit down and have a conversation. There was something more personal, extracting something out of the subject. Now, I know full well that these actors especially have complete control of what they project to the lens, because that's what they do for a living. And I can't, I can't control that, but I like the idea of somebody like Doug Kirkland, or it's another celebrity photographer. Nothing's coming to mind now. But
Dan
anyway,
Winters?
Dan Winters, yeah. That can extract something that you want to think that was unintentional, or something that we caught an actual moment where that celebrity's guard was down for a second. You could see who they really were.
Well, think
those
about
kind of images that I will go back to over and over again.
Yeah, and not to jump the gun on a soon future show about Avedon, but think of that shot of Marilyn Monroe that Avedon caught between takes, or the after takes, when she's sort of not looking at the camera and she's sitting down and looking at the side, and she's not putting on the persona of Marilyn Monroe. She's Norma Jean, it seems, in that picture. You know the shot I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. There's another picture, and I'm sorry, the photographer has the name has escaped me. It was a photograph of Michelle Pfeiffer, and it was at the very end of the shoot. She was sitting on a stool, presumably it was a straight ahead portrait. Somehow or other, the camera was quite a bit above her, sh- shooting down towards her. She's just kind of sliding aside to get off the stool. And actually, you can't really even see her. You don't see her face. You just see her hair down. You know, unmistakably, it's Michelle Pfeiffer. And her leg is kind of pushing off the stool. And it's like, there's a gesture, a moment of like, that's how she moves. This is who this woman is.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of picture where you're like, well, this is Michelle Pfeiffer. Just, she's done, having her photograph taken. And there's this kind of moment in between moments, or moments after the moments. There's the one that's staged, and then there's one that isn't. And the one that isn't, in my mind, if it's done well, if there's some cognizance going on, there's something magic and human about what's going on. That image is fantastic. That's sort of thing.
That. Hopefully, we can find.
Yeah, I've got it over here in my.
Oh, you
collection.
do. Oh, well, then
I'll grab
hopefully
it.
Figure it out. When you're talking about the looking at stuff again, I when I go to the Pulitzer Prize shots, because probably the book that I started with got me thinking about photography more. But I can, this sort of ties into what we were talking about last week, last episode about collecting, because if you're collecting photography or buying it and you talk about if you're going to hang it on the wall and you're going to look at it and it's going to bring up multiple questions every time you look at it. I think about the guy who was talking about having that picture of the wave above his bed so that he could look at it, and he sees it as a, what did I say, a silk sheet or a single wave in the ocean. If you're going to have that kind of photography in front of you, you're going to look at it all the time. You can't always fully understand it. If you did, it would sort of lose its magic. In fact, I've got pictures on my wall now that for it sort of faded in the background. I've just become, decoration, because it's no longer something that has a. In fact, I don't even think the pictures had questions or sort of longevity to look at. They're just really nice pictures in the sense of the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. But I got Shane's picture up there, which brings up a whole sorts of questions of the winged victory of Samothrace. So it's actually, frankly, time for me to change that. But anyway, sorry. I go back to the. I've got actually some of these pages bookmarked from. I think it was from another podcast. I think I was on. I was talking to Sid about this on Shutter Time. But I pick up this book. I haven't picked it up in a while, but I look at it, and again, I'm drawn to certain shots, certain events, and they're Pulitzer Prize pictures. The one that always stands out the most is this one called "The Flag in the Plaza." It shows this man, this white guy, actually about to jab a flagpole into a black gentleman who's in a suit. Do you know this picture?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's available. I'll put it up in the show notes.
Yeah. He's holding it like a battering ram. He's taking a run at him like a spear.
Right. And it's an American flag, and I think the black gentleman is a lawyer, and he's trying to get to it's a City Hall Plaza and stuff like that. Anyway, I've constantly looked at this image multiple times, and it's not something I would want hanging on my wall. Actually, it's not. It's because it's such a violent picture, but it has such, that almost looks like it's taken from a painting, right? Of some sort of revolution or some sort of evil, and the irony of this guy, who's a lawyer about to get hit by an American flag. And what goes on when I look at the pictures, I'm always looking at the people's faces and wondering what's going on in their minds, and put all sorts of questions about how someone can do this and what the hell is happening. And there's no answers. This picture doesn't have the answers, but it's definitely something that I keep looking at, and I think I probably always will. And there's a story behind it. I won't read it. What was going on? But yeah. So for me, it's these photojournalistic pictures that bring up the most amount of thinking. Maybe that's the right word. I don't know if I'm thinking about the pictures or. whatever. Well,
Yep.
And what? Go ahead.
So, and I was just saying another component too is nostalgia or memory, whatever you want to say.
What do you mean?
Well, I think of those pictures that I took last summer at that abandoned home is the one I used to live in. I go back to those a lot because those were lived in spaces and they are now not. And so I can hear the sounds, and I think I mentioned it in the episode that when we were talking about that, the show, that, you know, I remember playing the stereo in that parlor, you know.
Yeah.
And now it's just the sound of birds, you know, pigeons in there, and the wind blowing through the windows. It's different.
You find yourself looking at those pictures?
Like, I do every now and then because I go through my Instagram stream or my Flickr stream for other reasons, and then I just see them in the stream. There's not that many. There's 8 or 10 of them, and I'm like, oh, slow down here, take a look. They're part of a kind of a revisionist history of, you know, did the family really like living there? No. You know, miserable cold winter. I got pneumonia that one winter. It's like one of those farm pioneer things where I spent a couple of days in the hospital because I got pneumonia. It was a miserable cold winter. You know, all kinds of things that bring it back. And so you go back to those and, you know, I was there. I was the only one in the family that's been back, as far as I know, to go in there. And I kind of, presented it to my family. Said, "Here's the state of the thing," and everyone's left to their own perception of what they see. So
or everybody projects themselves onto the pictures, and so right,
exactly, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. As you were saying that, it made me think that often someone else might see something in your picture that will make you take a second look at it too. When someone else looks at something, I mean, 'cause, you know, I look at my own pictures and I can only find the meaning that I had when I was taking the picture. I might find something else, but when someone else looks at it and says, "Oh, I see such and such," or "I see what you're doing here, X, Y, and Z," and all of a sudden they can switch perspectives and see the picture through a different set of eyes. I'm like, "Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even notice that." Or, you know, I don't know what's going on. And then I'll allow myself to take a second look. It's funny you were talking about those pictures of your house because they have meaning, and it's been, you know, that's going to sort of build in, you know, this required sort of looking at over and over again, because it's going to, you were saying, bring up nostalgia and memory and whatnot. And, you know, sometimes with images that I take, I don't see them having that value to me. But like, for instance, I walk around my neighborhood. Like I said, I've been taking these little sort of detailed shots of things in my neighborhood, and I'll post them up on the Facebook group for people in the neighborhood. And people in that group, there are people who are from this neighborhood who don't live here anymore. And so they'll start to talk about the picture, like, "Oh, that thing is such and such, and I remember when it was blah blah blah," and then I start looking at it through their filter rather than just, "Oh, I was taking this cool thing, or it's some part of the neighborhood that I see all the time, and, you know, I'm gonna record it." And then they're bringing a different perspective to it, which allows me to then look at it in a different way, and then suddenly the picture has a little bit more meaning.
Right.
It means something more to them because they're touching into the nostalgia or memory. But then for me, it has a little bit more meaning than just this cool item. There's some part of history or something, short as it may be or whatever. So I always find that kind of interesting. But it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen with a lot of the pictures I take. And, you know, to have the kind of experience you did with, like, going back to your place that you grew up in, and to create those pictures, will certainly have a reason to look back at it. Actually, the only other thing I'm thinking about is pictures of me and Elizabeth, which, you know, I'm putting together slideshows or pictures for her memorial. It's coming up in a month. In June. And those are the ones I can do the double takes for. But there's a lot of, I want to say baggage. I don't want to judge it, but there's a lot of, you know,
well,
stuff.
There's a lot of
stuff to those pictures too.
Deep feeling, yeah.
There's deep feeling and whatnot. But there's the kind of imagery that I don't get tired of looking at at all. So there is something to that. But
it goes beyond. It goes beyond photography as a craft or an art or whatever. Those lofty, philosophical things. They really have a function in memory in a very human way in this particular context, for sure. Yeah,
and how important photography can be to triggering memories and anyway, that's going in a different direction.
Yeah, but it's another reason to continue looking at them.
It is another reason too. And what was I going to say? I just spaced out. I'm sorry, I forgot. Okay. Was
another reason why you'd be doing a double take on the image, or is it just
I lost it? Yeah, I lost my. This happens when
we got to start writing notes.
We got to start writing
notes.
Yeah, we wing this sometimes, but and well, I want to hear about a specific image of yours or something that you've go back to besides your own pictures. I mean, there must be someone else's.
I look well.
And this is why, we don't have notes, so that's why you have to
Well, no, I've got a few things to choose from here. I look at Gary Winogrand's street images. I mean, my favorite street image ever is the bench, the World's Fair 1964, with the women on the bench in all different poses, just naturalistically. Bookended by two men, one's reading the paper and one's kind of staring off into space. For me, it's as close to a perfect street image, and that everyone is in their own. My own definition of a street image is every individual in the picture is in their own little world. Mm-hmm. Or in that particular picture, there are a couple of women that are kind of staring. One's looking into a magazine, and there's two of them looking down, I think, together. Just the virtuosity of that particular image brings me back to it all the time, like listening to a favorite piece of music, where you got to play it over and over again to figure it out. And that's one of them.
And that would be one you'd probably hang on your wall if you had.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's inspired a whole bunch of other pictures, including my current profile picture in Facebook, right, which is that family that we took not too far from where Winograd took another image.
Yeah, I know.
In Center Park Zoo.
Okay, so here's a question. Well, actually, sorry to interrupt.
I know you didn't want me to talk about my own pictures, but
no,
there's a connection. There's a through line for me there.
But as long as we're on it, what do you think the criteria is? Well, that's another question. I want to be able to create an image like that would have the ability for people to take a double take out. And I don't want to chalk it up to luck or circumstances, but what kind of criteria do you see in a picture that sort of, because you could tell the difference, right? You can see a picture in your own camera roll, right? Yeah. This picture, who cares? It's a nice picture. It's nice. I did it in the moment, and it sits on the in the hard drive. This one, there's something else to it. And is it the criteria of the picture? Is it a criterion? Is it something in you? Is it a combination? What?
All of the above, I think.
Yeah, I know. I was but how do you, there's no magic moment. There's no magic key.
Well, it becomes magic in the convergence of circumstances, right? And I know you didn't want to talk about luck, but it's really, the fortune favors the prepared. You're going out there, you're shooting.
Well, that's different than luck. I think luck is you make your own luck because you're paying attention, and you're able to do that. So is that it? You're just being vigilant?
I was thinking you paid me a great compliment when I was visiting you, and I was posting the pictures from the first day I was out by myself at Ground Zero, Lower Manhattan, walking north up Broadway. And, you know, I said, here's some pictures that I posted. And you said, you know, I really love your whatever effing pictures or whatever it was. It was a little profane, right? And I'm like, wow, and it was funny because I get this great compliment at the same time. My feet want to fall off because I've been walking miles and miles and miles, and I'm like, that's a great boost, you know. If you have like someone that, you know, appreciates the work, and the hit rate for me, the hit rate was unbelievable. Like I've never had such a hit rate on a day. Like those images that I took that I had posted were 2 days worth of work, and there was a dozen or more like passable images that had some sparkle in them, right? There's a combination of being in the right place, having the you know, having the camera set up right, the light is right, and there's that extra bit of inspiration where my whole being was set up to do that work.
And that's reflected. You think
and
that's
that
reflected
is absolutely
in
it is, because I would not have looked as deeply or waited. I like you, and neither one of us, when we were out together, neither one of us kind of camped out, right? Like my friend Mark Ryerson does. You know, he'll stand at a corner, or he used to stand at a corner and wait for people to walk by and catch. This is a completely valid way of doing it. I wanted to cover miles, and I think you did too, right? We're just, what we see, we're capturing what it is we see as we walk. And there was that inspiration of the changing the ebb and flow of what it was that we were doing, combined with the inspiration and the wanting to do well, and having our days free to just concentrate on that and nothing else.
So
I'm on vacation.
It's a bit of a mindset.
I got nothing else.
I think it's a bit of a mindset as you're approaching to take the picture that can then lead to imagery, which would then have that quality of perhaps wanting to be looked at more than once. It's kind of like a...
Right. Doing the best work you can do is another way to think of it. Whether you mean it to be looked... For me, I would like to have street pictures where there's a sufficient complexity in it that make you want to go, oh, this is just these people lined up, but what's this guy doing here with his big open mouth? Is he, you know, trying to offend his sister or something? Like you're projecting on it. There's a certain interest and complexity, and everyone has a separate expression, a different expression on their face. Because
I have a hard time explaining or getting through to people when I show them in one of my classes the Fred Herzog picture of the guy standing there with the bandaged hand and the tissue paper on his chin, and the woman looking at him. And you know, that's one of those images. It's funny because it keeps popping up on the screen when I look at it. I picked it because it's a definitive Herzog picture.
Just another Sunday morning in Vancouver.
Right. But, you know, my guess is the audience, in this case, the students are wondering, why did I pick that picture? Mm-hmm. You know, and I showed it to them, and I said, look, there are these things going on in it. And I don't know if it gets through to them, but it's like it warrants multiple looking at to sort of get through to it. I'm still kind of working on the multiple views. Like I'm trying to figure out what it is that appeals to me about the picture. But, you know, why I could see in their eyes.
Well, there's some mystery.
Why is this picture any better than something I took on Fulton Street? You know, like what's the difference? You know, or if you look at an Eggleston picture of the tricycle or something like that, you know, what's so, you know, they can see that what's so special. You know, and I don't blame them because they're not, you know, they're just learning. But, you know, I have to sort of be behind what I'm telling them. And sometimes I have a little hard time about, like, why am I looking at this picture over and over again? What is it about this? And so...
Well, it's funny, the tricycle picture leads me to another Winogrand picture. It was taken in the Southwest somewhere of a baby in the open garage door with an empty driveway, and then the desert that's just beside. There's such menace in that picture. Like, what is going on there? What is the mystery here? There's a kid by himself, a baby. like in this open garage right next to the it's a mystery, and you want to go through it again to like make next time you check, is the baby still okay? You know, I don't know, whatever goes through your mind, you know.
So some idea of like, you can't do this with every picture, but some idea of creating mystery or something that would sort of force viewers
for
to,
me, those kinds of pictures have value.
And you
and
can't
I'm talking
go out
about
and
just
make
in,
them. You can't.
no.
I mean, they just you're aware of the circumstances and you take advantage of it when it comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not luck. It's just being aware of your situation and what you're photographing and all the pieces coming together and
well,
bringing
circumstance does have something to do with it, but you have to be prepared when it happens.
Okay. All right. It's something that, I don't see on a daily, you're not going to see on a daily basis. I don't see on a daily basis, but it's that idea that, and it does show up, like you came to New York, right? And so do you think anything about coming to a new place?
Oh, absolutely.
Did it? Okay. So yeah, because
when I went to Mexico, it was the same thing. I was completely overstimulated. Yeah. Where do I start? Yeah. And then I was the travel photographer. I didn't want to be a travel photographer. I knew when I came to New York that I was not going to shoot travel. I was going to shoot street as if I was a native New Yorker. Like, look at me.
Okay. All right.
It wasn't that. I was like, I wanted to be in the I wanted to be a Winogrand. I wanted to be a Eugene Smith. I wanted to be the later generation. Melissa O'Shaughnessy. She's one of the women photographers. She takes wonderful color pictures of the street in the same places you and I had walked. She's a huge inspiration. So, I'm sure she goes out every day.
Yeah. So to leave our audience with is there any kind of practical thing that we can do to sort of hedge our bets in this direction, to create photography that warrants double takes?
Concentrate on doing the best you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the process. It's our process that makes it better. And then when you have enough, and I'll always say this, when you have enough material, then you can be brutal about culling and all that kind of stuff. And then you have this more condensed, distilled work that has more meaning and more punch.
Yeah. The meaning is going to be important, I think, in the pictures. And spending time, people go out and say, that's why I always tell students, go out and shoot every day. Like, don't just, say, I'm going to go shoot tomorrow or something like that. I mean, if you can, bring your camera with you everywhere and, keep taking pictures and keep challenging yourself a little bit. And not every day is going to end up with a shot that's, going to end up hanging on a wall someplace.
Nope.
But, eventually that you'll work hard enough and start seeing things through slightly different filters that you can then capture it and maybe capture some of that magic in which the pictures are something worth collecting and looking at. So I don't know if that was just a big bunch of BS or not, but it sounds good.
Well, it sounds like the pitch of your voice went down like we're nearing the end of the show.
We're nearing the end of the show. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, we are nearing the end of the show. But okay. It's something the reason I'm talking about this too is because it's something I want to work on myself. I'm going through this transition. I keep saying this because I don't know what else to call it, but I'm not doing the same kind of street photography that we were doing, or what I was doing before that. And I'm walking around with different cameras and different lenses, and the pictures are a lot more quiet. The photography is quiet, but I don't know what it's leading to. I have no idea what is on the other end of this sort of search. And I do know that the photography for me is like, I want to get to that. I want to get to back to those pictures. I look at my old stuff and I'm like, wow, I took that, or I took this. I didn't really, and actually there are some pictures I forgot about. Like, I didn't take that, did I? So yeah, I go back and look at that stuff, but now I don't know if the pictures warrant that kind of, maybe I'm too close to them right now. So, but again, I don't know what direction I want to go in. I do know I'm wanting as you were describing that picture of Michelle Pfeiffer, or even the shot I was talking about, the Abaddon shot of Marilyn Monroe, to be able to capture that kind of something in a person, to be able to get that in any kind of person, doing portraits, and people are aware of their portraits being made, and they present themselves in a certain way, but to be able to do that in capture somebody in a way that is not the facade that they wear to the world, but is the personal part in collaboration with them, is something that might be some direction I might like to go into. I just haven't. Well, that's for another story. So, but anyway, cool.
All
right, yeah. So yeah, I'll not to put too much of a bunch of spoiler on it, but I'm going to the Abaddon show tomorrow, and I think we got to talk about him in the next episode, right?
There's a big birthday coming up.
Big birthday coming up. So I usually don't give previews on this, but I'm so excited because I really want to talk about his work and talk about the kind of imagery that we were just talking about. The double take is a person like him, or
seeing the actual work that he touched,
the actual prints.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, the actual prints themselves. So I will report back to you in a couple of weeks, but to everybody, we'll get in touch with them. Anyway, all right, cool. That's the evening. Yeah, where can the world find you in?
You can find me on Facebook at Ward Rosin Photography. I'm on Twitter and Vero as W Rosin Photo. You can find me. Let's see, where else? Different places.
It's getting late.
I'm losing it now. Yeah, it's getting pretty late here. I didn't sleep very well last night on account of the Aurora.
Blame the Aurora.
I'll stay up late. Anyway, I have this small business called Ornis Photo. It's ORNIS.photo. It's where I sell lens adapters and 7 Artisans lenses for Fuji X and Sony E-mount cameras.
And there are unofficial sponsor. Yeah, there you go. All right. We have to get that in, obviously. Very important. Are you getting any new lenses in, or is it...
Not right now, maybe later this spring.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for new lenses, and literally always looking
Yes,
for new lenses.
are.
Yeah. So I'm on Vero at AM Rosario, on Flickr on AM Rosario. Don't go to my Instagram account on AM Rosario. You can see me there, but don't follow me. My website is AM Rosario, and what else? Yes, I am working on my education site that will be up. It's actually up now, but we're working on it. And what else? I don't know. I think that's it. That's all the places.
We've been winging it all night. Why should we start
It's a Monday night. Why should we?
Yeah, exactly.
I know, it's like, get the rest of the week, Oh boy. But anyway, thanks for joining me tonight. It was
no problem. My pleasure as usual.
Now I'm all wired up. So you go to sleep, and I'm going to stay up. All right.
All right.
And we'll see everybody in a couple of weeks. All right. Cool.
Yep. All right.
Good night.
Good night.
We are 1,100 downloads away from 150,000.
It's pretty amazing, man.
I know.
That's 300,000 ears. I'll do that joke too. Well, no, we'll put this in the bloopers or something.
We'll put the 3,000. How much?
300,000 ears, man.
Oh yeah, but we're mono. So does that mean
but still ears and ears and ear.
Okay, ears. Many years
We should
ago.
go stereo because stereo would be.
Oh, it'd be like the fake stereo, like the Beatles, like the old Beatles song. They put this track in here and that track
would be
in there.
Antonio on the left and Ward on the right.
Right, but then you lose one speaker because you go to a bad diner and they got a speaker out and all you hear is one side of the conversation. And, you just hear George Harrison singing. You don't hear any music. Well, he has a good voice. So
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.